Father-in-law Kaido's monster cells create the strongest beasts. 51. Brother Ming's surprise. Marco arrives with the help of Sky's path, which can walk in the air. Doflamingo makes it to the coast in no time. Looking down at the dozens of people turned to stone, most of them members of his Quixote family. Doflamingo's brows furrowed, his expression extremely gloomy. Among them, somewhat took the opportunity to release the anger of the woman who was robbed by Liu crossing. Boa Hancock, you don't take Lozi seriously. This is Dressrosa, not your Nine-Snake Island. The Empress proudly raised her head and said indifferently, they offended the concubine and deserved it. Although it was heard that Doflamingo had eaten monster cells and was much stronger than before, Hancock was not afraid at all. As the only woman in the sea who owns conquerors, the Empress has a bearing no less than that of all men. When Doflamingo heard the words, the corners of his mouth twitched and he became more annoyed. But he also knew that it would be impossible to talk to this woman who is the biggest truth in the world by maintaining her beauty. Doflamingo took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. At this critical moment, he has no time or energy to duel with Boa Hancock. Pirate Empress, you are here for fairy beans. For the sake of being Shikai Bukai, I can give you one. The premise is that you don't make trouble in Lozi's territory. Doflamingo admits that he has given enough face to Boa Hancock. After all, Dressrosa is his base camp, and if he really starts, Boa Hancock is more likely to lose even if his strength is good. In that case, the person would not get a single fairy bin. Therefore, as long as people in their right minds will agree to Doflamingo's conditions. Unfortunately, the Empress responded with a sneer, it's not your turn to intervene in the matter of the concubine. Doflamingo's veins were exposed and he almost jumped. The roof of a high-rise building not far away. Garrett clapped his hands and said, that Pirate Empress is really beautiful. She speaks Haki and sounds nice, which makes birds popular. Birdman. Liu Xing laughed while listening to Garrett's nickname for Doflamingo, while playing with the cute bunny ears. Master, people think that the Pirate Empress is a good match for you, Garrett said seriously with a small face. Oh? Liu Xing became interested. Why do you think so? Because the Pirate Empress is the emperor among women, with a noble temperament, Haki, and looks so beautiful. Only such a woman is worthy of a master. Liu Xing really wanted to pick up Garrett and lift it up high. The little maid was too good at talking. Liu Xing joked, but I already have a wife. Garrett, you said that. Aren't you afraid that Yamato will be angry when he finds out? Garrett said with a serious look. The mistress Yamato shouldn't be angry, because a man like the master should be born with multiple wives. Liu Xing was ridiculous, and greatly praised Garrett. He sighed inwardly. It would be great if Yamato thought the same way as Garrett. Beside him, Fosfu listened to the conversation between the two, but he was very sensible and pretended not to hear, including what Liu Xing said to that Viola before. He didn't seem to have heard it. The affairs involving the husband and wife of the concubine and the young master Yamato are not for him. Fuzzy Fu clearly understood that his saber-tooth tiger fruit could evolve into a mythical beast species, and now his strength is second only to Jin among the 3 disasters and flying 6 cells, all thanks to the ghost-level monster cell of the consort. Liu Xing's concubine had a kind of recreation to him, and Fuzzy Fu could only be so grateful. How could he be demolished? In addition, even if this was ruled out, Fuzzy Fu had a feeling that since the concubine left the customs, there was some kind of terrifying aura emanating from him intentionally or unintentionally. That kind of momentum is very similar to Kaido's boss. Fosfu was in awe. Liu Xing didn't know Fosfu's thoughts. After teasing Garrett for a while, he looked into the distance and said meaningfully, count the time, those people should be here too. Garrett asked curiously, who is the master talking about? Liu Xing smiled and said, the one who gave us money. Doflamingo was speechless for Boa Hancock. This woman's brain circuit is different from that of a normal person, the reason is unreasonable, and the other party who is exchanging interests is regarded as bullshit. The only thing that works, I am afraid that only fists are left. Doflamingo no longer suppressed the anger in his heart, and said sensibly, Pirate Queen, listen to Lozi, this is not your Nine-Snake Island, give Lozi some peace, otherwise what? The Empress stared at each other with cold eyes, and her powerful aura was completely true. Doflamingo, all the people around were terrified. Is the tense atmosphere between the two Shikibukai about to start a shocking battle? Otherwise, Doflamingo was about to say something threatening when a voice interrupted him. Hey, can you let me go? I've been on the road for several days, and I'm starving to death. This sentence appeared extremely abruptly, and the whole audience was stunned. Doflamingo was even more furious, and asked Lozi to finish his words. His eyes uncontrollably burst out with murderous intent, turning his head to look at the person who came. He wants to kill to vent his anger. However, the surging killing intent receded like a tide the moment he saw the person coming. Instead, there was shock, and even a hint of uncertainty. The captain of the first team of the Whitebeard Pirates, Marco the Phoenix, is it you? 52. The strong are here, and Brother Ming panics, seeking flower tickets. Wow, Here comes another pineapple-headed birdman. Xing thinks that Garrett is a little genius sometimes, who can often say unexpected things. With her small furry face, big innocent eyes, and cute long and curved rabbit ears, it really makes people laugh. That's not Birdman, but Marco the Phoenix, the captain of the first team under Whitebeard, who is very powerful. Xing looked at the direction of the coast and explained slowly. The arrival of Marco surprised him, because at that time, there was no Whitebeard pirates among the forces that asked the 100 beasts to ask for fairy beans. But it makes sense to think about it. After all, Whitebeard's body is getting worse and worse, and he is in urgent need of fairy bean treatment. But if Whitebeard's body is suffering from other serious illnesses, not even the fairy beans can cure it. Xing thought silently. Immortal beans can treat all trauma and internal injuries. As long as they don't die, they can pull people back from the gate of hell, but they can't cure deep-rooted diseases. Coast. Empress Boa Hancock stands on the deck of the Hydra. Doflamingo uses strings to hold his body in midair. Marco fluttered the wings of a phoenix and floated on the other side. Three-legged posture. The Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral Flying Squirrel, who was observing in the dark with binoculars, was terrified. He never thought that the Whitebeard pirates would also participate in this fairy bean auction, and the strongest Captain Marco was sent. Obviously, Baituan is determined to win Xiandu. Dressrosa's current situation is getting more and more delicate. It's a big disadvantage for them. Marine Flying Squirrel has hidden worries in his heart, and he intuitions that this fairy bean auction will cause a big chaos that will shock the world. The hiding place of the Revolutionary Army. Sabo said to Koala, the Phoenix Marco is a very tricky character, plus the Pirate Empress. I'm afraid it won't be easy to snatch the fairy beans this time. Doflamingo's confidence that he could take all the fairy beans in his bag gradually disappeared. He underestimated the appeal of Xiandu. The Pirate Queen and the Phoenix Marco are all people who don't care about his prestige, especially the latter, even if he eats Doflamingo, whose strength has greatly increased in monster cells. He is extremely jealous of him. The three fell into an eerie silence. It was Marco who was the first to get impatient and said, "You really don't give way." "Then forget it, I'll take a detour." Saying that, he flapped his wings and flew away from the other side. Doflamingo suddenly stopped him. "Wait." Malcolm lowered his body and narrowed his eyes slightly. "What? Do you want to fight with me?" Doflamingo frowned and looked gloomy, but suddenly grinned and said, "I don't want to conflict with the Whitebeard pirates. I can give you one of the fairy beans." When Marco heard this, he also laughed. "I don't need you to let me. This time I brought several billions of Bailey, enough to buy a fairy bean." The muscles on Doflamingo's face twitched slightly. He said that it was just nice to hear, and his essence was to be afraid of Marco's strength and the power of the Whitebeard pirates. If you really want to let it go to the people behind. They must not have as much money as I brought." While flying towards the town, Marco said loudly, "I'm off to dinner. See you at the auction." "The person behind?" Doflamingo's expression changed. Obviously, it is not a weak person who can be mentioned by Marco deliberately. Doflamingo hurriedly looked out to sea and released observation haki. Soon, a ship flying the flag of the Big Mom pirates appeared on the sea level. When he saw the tall figure on the ship, Doflamingo's pupils shrank sharply. The people on the island also gasped. Just because of that tall figure, the second son of the four emperors aunt, the head of the four generals who can be compared with the Phoenix Marco, Charlotte Katakuri. Katakuri held a trident, and his mouth was covered by a scarf, revealing only a pair of extremely sharp eyes. When the ship entered the port, Katakuri suddenly pointed his trident at Doflamingo. "Joker, you bastard, you also robbed your mother of the weird cell." Doflamingo was startled. The arrival of the second-in-command of the two imperial regiments in succession has caused him a bit of chaos. The original plan was completely disrupted. Doflamingo tried his best to calm himself down, squeezed out an ugly smile and said, "Katakuri, my monster cell was stolen from someone else. I didn't know it was from the Big Mom pirates at the time." Katakuri snorted coldly. How could he believe Joker's nonsense? "When this fairy bean auction is over, I'll ask you to settle the account." After all, without even looking at Doflamingo, I set foot on Dressrosa's land. Doflamingo didn't say a word of objection, because he knew that it was useless to say it, and Katakuri would not ignore him at all. Doflamingo was very depressed. What made him more depressed was the sudden quack of an albatross in the sky. Big news. Big news. The fairy bean auction attracts all powers to gather. Dressrosa, Boa Hancock, the Pirate Queen, Marco the Phoenix, and Katakuri, the head of the star, are all determined to win the fairy beans. Who will be the final winner? And as the host quixote Doflamingo, can he still keep his fairy beans? When Doflamingo heard these words, he was furious and shouted, "Shut your beak, Morgans." The albatross who screamed was naturally Morgans, the king of news. Morgans not only didn't shut up, but shouted more happily, "Doflamingo is angry." It seems he panicked. Yes, even if Dressrosa is his base camp, what can he do alone in the face of so many strong men? "Hey, what did I see? Another ship is coming from the sea in the distance." That flag, that flag is. Morgan's tone suddenly became extremely shocked and excited. It's the banner for the red-haired shanks of the 4 emperors. My god, the 4 emperors actually sent people to participate in this immortal bin auction. It's unheard of, unprecedented. Then ask Mr. Doflamingo, are you more panicked now? 53. Dressrosa, who is about to be in chaos. I panic. Nima's head. Doflamingo almost couldn't help but curse. With so many powerhouses coming, he was indeed a little flustered beyond his previous expectations. But Morgans, you bastard, where do you put Losey's face? Doflamingo looked gloomily at the Morgans high up in the air. If it weren't for the distance, he would have hit him with a bullet string long ago, making the opponent close that beak forever. Hoo-oh, it's really lively here, so many people want to buy fairy beans. A ship flying the red-hair pirate's flag, near the coast of Dressrosa. A fat man with a chicken leg jumped from the top and said with a mouthful of oil, I don't have much money this time. Captain Red-Haired, I'm afraid I can't help you. Maybe I won't be able to grab a single fairy bin. Doflamingo felt a sigh of relief when he knew Fat Reikairu. It's good that it's not Beckman, the second in command of the Red Group. Although Reikairu is also quite powerful, Beckman is said to be comparable to the Redhead in legend, and is obviously much more terrifying than Reikairu. With the arrival of the Empress, Mako, Katakuri, and Reikairu, next, several more ships arrived at the port of Dressrosa. High in the sky, Morgan's eyes lit up, and he shouted loudly every time someone came, for fear that no one would know. Look, who is the man with a cigar and big gold chains all over his body? It turns out that Feld, the king of loan sharks, is extremely rich. There is another person next to Feld, carrying a scythe with a murderous look on his face, and the men behind him also look full of murderous intentions. Could this person be the annoying king of killers Picro? The 2 kings of the underground world came together, causing a sensation again. Doflamingo smiled happily when he saw Feld and Picrot. The 3 of them had already secretly formed an alliance. With the support of these 2 people, Mako, Katakuri and others will be at the fairy bin auction, and he is finally more confident. Morgans yelled again. Another boat came, and a beautiful and elegant lady came down. Isn't that Queen of the Pleasure District Stussy? And she is another king of the underground world. Stussy wore a pink round hat, with a petite and cute face, and looked at Morgans in the sky with a smile. Mr. Big News, what is your name? You're scaring people. Morgan's feathers stood on end. He knew that every time the Queen of the Pleasure District made that look, there was murder behind it. Morgans shut up immediately and stopped talking about Stussy's information. Stussy smiled sweetly, then looked at Boa Hancock again. The world's most beautiful pirate queen. I finally saw it, and she looks like a fairy, and everyone seems ashamed. The Empress faced each other with cold eyes and said proudly, anyone should be ashamed in front of a concubine, let alone you, an extremely vulgar old woman. Extremely vulgar? Exclamation mark. Old woman? Exclamation mark. Stussy's eyes twitched violently. She is indeed quite old, and no one knows her real age. But she is well maintained, with a delicate and beautiful appearance, and she is also a lively beauty. Stussy gave Boa Hancock a hateful look. Sure enough, it's as inhumane as the legend says, and the old lady doesn't have the same knowledge as you. Say leave. The purpose of her coming here is to help the world government obtain a fairy bean, and at the same time to inquire about the mysterious consort of the beasts. Not here to compete with Boa Hancock. Dong dong dong. Suddenly the ground shook like an earthquake. A huge figure with a height of dozens of meters fell on Dressrosa's land. That's Elbaf's giants, Helding. After Stussy left, Morgans shouted again. Helding is known as the giant warrior of the new era. The strong men came one after another. Some sneak in, like Marine Vice Admiral Flying Squirrel and Revolutionary Army Sabo, unwilling to reveal their tracks and identities. Some are very high profile, or disdain to hide, such as the Empress, Mako and others. Morgans acted as a master commentator for everyone, and every time someone came, he would shout. It was actually a king who got off the boat this time. It was Elisabello II, and his military advisor Diagama. It is said that the king's fist of Elisabello II can easily shatter a fortress, and the 4 emperors would not dare to take it hard. There are also the Long-Handed clan, and there are people from the Murloc clan. More and more powerful people gathered in Dressrosa, and the whole world was shocked. In particular, the 4 emperors' regiments have sent people to come, which is unprecedented. Doflamingo looked extremely gloomy. Whether he can get all the fairy bins in his pocket, he is not even half sure. Although he is the host, he has home field advantage. But if those powerhouses go crazy, the entire Dressrosa is estimated to be destroyed. The Flying Squirrel Vice Admiral, who has been observing with binoculars, is in a cold sweat. He had foreseen that Dressrosa would be in chaos soon. Obviously, there are so many strong people, but there are only 5 fairy beans. It's called an auction, but what about after the auction? These pirate villains are almost 100% vying for each other, and conflicts break out. This must be reported to Marshal Sengoku immediately. The Flying Squirrel wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. He wants to report to the Marshal by phone in person. High Roof. Fuzzfoo's expression was not as relaxed as it was at the beginning, and he said solemnly, Master Consort, there are too many strong people coming this time. Will it affect our plan? Despite the blessing of ghost-level monster cells, Fuzzy Fu's strength has skyrocketed to only slightly second to that of Yanbane. But at the moment Dressrosa, there are Emperor and Vice-level powerhouses like Mako and Katakuri. Fuzzy Fu was difficult to deal with alone. He said again, "Do you want Boss Kaido to send some more people over?" Liu Xing shook his head and said, "Too many of us would cause Doflamingo to be alarmed, which is why I just let you follow." Fuzzy Fu bowed to listen. The little maid Garrett looked at her master's back with admiration. Liu Xing stood with his hands behind his back, and said with a smile, "What's more, so many strong people are here to send us money, we should be happy." Fuzzy Fu said yes. Liu Xing stroked Yanmo on his waist. This sword of hell, obtained from Xiaozi, has long been convinced by Liu Xing's conquerors. When Liu Xing's hand touched it, Yanmo seemed to let out an excited sword cry that was eager to dry. Liu Xing's lips curled slightly. "Don't worry, Yanmo, it's about time for you to unsheath." 54. The Fairy Bin auction is officially open. Ask for a flower ticket. Add what? Except for the Pirate Empress, the Whitebeard Pirates, the Red Hair Pirates, and the Big Mom Pirates are all involved. Sengoku, who answered the Flying Squirrel's report call, took a few deep breaths before suppressing the shock in his heart and barely calmed down. "Okay. The old man knows." Put down the phone. Sengoku frowned tightly. The impact of this immortal bin auction greatly exceeded his previous expectations. All the 4 Emperor's regiments were involved, which was unprecedented. "Should you send Admiral to Dressrosa?" the Great Staff Officer Crane said. Crane has been staying at Naval Headquarters since he was seriously injured last time by Runty and Peggy 1. He basically stayed in Sengoku's office and became a veritable marshal's staff. Sengoku sighed and said, "I'm afraid not. Dressrosa is Shikibukai Doflamingo's territory. We have made an agreement with him. Except for special circumstances, Marine can't be bothered." This time, the Flying Squirrel was sent over there secretly. Crane continued, "Can't we make an exception?" Liu Xing, the concubine of the beasts, is also in Dressrosa. If he can be caught, it will remove a big hidden danger for Marine. Sengoku said in a heavy tone, "It's not that simple. If we take action against that Liu Xing, Kaido of the beasts will definitely not sit still, and a full-scale war with the 4 emperors is likely to break out. The 100 beasts have 2 big killers like monster cells and fairy beans, but our marines are not well prepared. Once a war breaks out, it's not good for us." Sengoku's analysis made perfect sense, and hearing that, he had to be silent. Sengoku actually had a word left unspoken. That's why he couldn't send Admiral to Dressrosa, and the bigger reason was that the 5 elders didn't agree. Add, why don't the 5 elders agree? Naturally, Doflamingo used his celestial dragon status to greet the 5 elders early, and let the 5 elders not spoil his good deeds. Otherwise, he'll reveal Mary E. Joy's national treasure. Dressrosa. The day of the Fairy Bin auction has finally arrived. Thousands of people poured into the arena, everyone with excited expressions on their faces. The king of the country, the king of the underground world, Shikibukai, the deputy of the 4 emperors, with so many big people bidding on the immortal bins. I really don't know how high the price of the immortal bins will be. Let's talk about 1 billion Baileys. After all, the weird cells at that time were at this price. 1 billion Baileys. Even if you sell me, you won't be able to earn this money. Che, do you think you are the concubine of the beasts, and the bounty can reach 1 billion Baileys? Amid the noise, everyone sat in the auditorium of the arena. On a battle platform in the center of the arena, there are 5 pillars rising high. Above each pillar is an exquisite jade box, which contains a small green pill. That is the much-anticipated fairy bin. On the high platform in front of the column, a Kada of the Donquixote family acted as the host. There, the host can see offers from anyone in the audience. Audience seats are also divided into 3, 6, 9 and so on. The most prestigious position, of course, is the VIP seat. Liu Xing was sitting leisurely in the VIP seat with the little maid Grit and Fuzzy Fu at this moment. The VIP seats cover a large area, but only a few people are qualified to sit here. Everyone's seat is also scattered. Obviously the pride of the strong makes them disdain to communicate with others. Add. Liu Xing glanced casually. Doflamingo looked gloomy as he sat with Feld and Pikerot, the 2 kings of the underground world. Pirate Empress Boa Hancock, with a cold temperament, can only be seen from a distance, behind only her 2 sisters Sandersonia and Marigold. The Phoenix Marco squatted on the chair, staring eagerly at the fairy bin in the center. Charlotte Katakuri folded her arms around her chest, and her sharp eyes made people dare not look directly. The fat man Reikairu was still eating chicken legs, as if he would never get tired of it. Liu Xing also saw a few familiar figures, the giant family hiding, the leader of the Flower Kingdom, Ai King Jiao, the king's fist Elizabello II. These people, who were supposed to compete for Mera fruit in the original book, came to Dressrosa. Now, it is attracted by fairy beans. What? Liu Xing suddenly raised his eyebrows. Just now, he accidentally swept across the ordinary seats and felt an inexplicable powerful energy. Although the person was well hidden, Liu Xing sensed it. There are such powerhouses hidden, which is interesting. Liu Xing looked in the direction of the powerful chi machine. It was a very young man with a hat covering his face. Liu Xing's eyes flickered slightly, a little surprised, but also a little playful. Then he turned his eyes away as if nothing had happened. What's the matter with you, Sabo? Koala asked in a low voice. Just now she noticed that the muscles of her companion beside her were tense. Sabo said in an extremely solemn voice, we were discovered. It's that mysterious beast consort. While Liu Xing was observing everyone was watching him. Just seeing the Prajna mask on his face, I was somewhat disappointed. The Empress whispered in her heart, is this Liu Xing who invented the fairy beans? Although he is also a man, for the sake of his ability to invent, he will be tied to the daughter country if he has a chance. The daughter country is forbidden for men to enter. A man who enters the country of the daughter has only one fate, and that is death. For the sake of Liu Xing's invention of fairy beans, Bao Hancock plans to tie him to the daughter country. In the opinion of this extremely self-righteous empress, this is still a gift to Liu Crossing. Marco, Katakuri, Kaido, and others also glanced at Liu Xing intentionally or unintentionally. Different expressions. Liu Xing was calm, as if he didn't notice these gazes, and just tasted the wine lightly, waiting for the start of the fairy bin auction. A fragrant wind suddenly came from one side, accompanied by a pleasant giggling. I have finally seen the mysterious fifth sea emperor himself. But why is the fifth emperor wearing a ghost mask? Is there anything shameful? Presumptuous. Fuzzy Fury scolded everyone. The visitor showed a frightened expression and said weakly, don't be so fierce, she's just a weak woman. Liu Xing stretched out his hand to get Fuzz Fu to step back, glanced at the person coming, and said lightly, this evil ghost Prajna mask was put on by my wife to scare away the malicious fox spirits outside. Do you think she's right, Miss Queen of the Pleasure District Stussy? 55. Intense bidding. The first 1.7 billion. Ask for a flower ticket. Stussy's grinning expression instantly stiffened. But she quickly reacted, giving Liu Xing a charming white look, and said in a flirtatious tone, Master, 5 emperors can really joke. Do you mean they are fox spirits? Liu Xing was too lazy to respond, and tasted the wine lightly. Seeing Liu Xing ignoring her, Stussy felt a little annoyed. She already used a tone, so she couldn't attract the man in front of her at all. Is it really like what the Pirate Queen said? She has grown old and has no charm? No. It's impossible. The charm of the old lady is number 1 in the world. Stussy, who was out of breath, brought her exquisite body closer to Liu Xing. Her red lips spit out lightly, and the fragrance was overflowing, and said aggressively, isn't it the dignified 5 emperors, who are afraid of the inside? Liu Xing frowned immediately. Seeing the effect, Stussy was overjoyed, and continued to approach Liu Xing, ready to attack. Unexpectedly, a slender and furry figure stood in front of her. The master has already said that you are a vixen with bad intentions. Get out of here quickly. Stussy's eyes widened. Rabbit-eared girl, fur tribe. It was the little maid Garrett who stood in her way. Seeing Garrett's eyes full of hostility, his furry palms and claws were exposed, and arcs were flashing on them. It was as if she was going to scratch Liu Xing if she got closer. Looking at Liu Xing himself, he was still tasting wine without even looking at her. Stussy's teeth are itchy. Her charm has been completely ignored. But Stussy had no choice but to turn around angrily and leave. Garrett stuck out his little tongue behind. Vixen. Liu Xing couldn't help laughing. Liu Xing is indeed a person who loves beauty, but not all women are qualified to make him fancy. For example, Queen of the Pleasure District Stussy, a spy of the world government, makes Liu Xing disgusted by her identity alone. She has been in that kind of place for a long time, and no matter how pure and exquisite she is, she can't hide the dusty atmosphere on her body. And the purpose of her approach to Liu Xing is undoubtedly to seek information for the world government. How could Liu Xing give such a person a good face? He didn't kill the flowers, and it was just because the timing was not right now. Stussy's vignette passed. It didn't take long for the fairy bin auction to officially begin. Under the loud roar of the host on the central high platform, the audience burst into enthusiastic cheers. The host held the microphone and said loudly, everyone in the audience, the powerhouses who are famous in New World, and the distinguished adults, I know you can't wait for a long time. Without further ado, let's start this much-anticipated auction right away. There are 5 fairy bins in this auction, one at a time. The auction reserve price of each fairy bin is 300 million Baileys, and each increase is not less than 10 million Baileys. Everyone, hold up the number plates in your hands and bid as much as you can. As soon as the host's voice fell, someone raised a placard. Wow, it's Helding, the warrior of the giant clan, and he bid 310 million Bailey. In the audience, someone sneered, I only wanted to buy fairy bins after adding 10 million. Daydreaming. This person raised his card and made a direct bid of 400 million. The host jumped up excitedly and shouted excitedly, 400 million, 400 million. Someone bid 400 million just at the beginning. I was wrong, it was 500 million. And the green pepper of the cone from the land of flowers offered 500 million Bailey. Lao Ki next to the green pepper was dissatisfied and said, Old man, do we have so much money? You directly pay 500 million. Shut up, you bastard. Green Pepper scolded. As long as there are fairy beans, Losey's cone head is cured, and the treasures of the flower country are taken out. How much does it cost? The Green Pepper with a bounty of up to 542 million Baileys was famous for its cone head decades ago. But, during a battle with marine hero Garp, his cone was smashed by the opponent's iron fist. So much so that the Green Peppers can no longer even take out the treasures of the Land of Flowers. Green Pepper has always hated Garp for this, and even in the original book, he wanted to kill Luffy to vent his anger. When he learned that Xiandu can treat all injuries, Green Pepper immediately came to Dressrosa without hesitation. At this time, the host's voice shouted again, 700 million. King Elizabello II offered 700 million Bailey. The Green Pepper immediately stared fiercely in the direction of Elizabello II. The latter sensed his gaze and glared back unceremoniously. Green Pepper raised a placard, 800 million Bailey. Elizabello II would not like to be pressed down by Green Peppers, and raised a placard, 1 billion. Boom. There was an uproar. Just 1 minute has passed, and the price of a fairy bin has exceeded the 1 billion mark, surpassing the previous monster cells. Bastard. Elizabello, are you trying to get along with Losey? Green Pepper stood up angrily, bursting with a powerful momentum. Sit down, cone of Green Pepper. Diamante, the top carder of the Don Quixote family, responsible for maintaining the order of the auction, said coldly, you guys are going to fight. Wait for the auction to end. You can fight whatever you want. The host on the high stage wiped his sweat and said with a startled smile, everyone's enthusiasm for Xiandu is too high, but everyone must keep calm. Remember, now you are using the money in your hands to compete for Xiandu. VIP seat. Feld, the king of loan sharks, said impatiently, you don't even have a billion Baileys. How dare you come to shoot fairy beans? Feld raised his placard, and it turned out to be a terrifying 1.5 billion Bailey, a full increase of 500 million Baileys on the original basis. This is amazing. As a result, the host suspected that he had read it wrong for a while, and rubbed his eyes vigorously before he let out a roar like the sky. 1.5 billion Bailey. Lord Feld bid 1.5 billion Bailey, worthy of being the king of currency circulation in Master's underground world. Did anyone bid more than Lord Fielder? If no one is there, I declare that this first fairy bin belongs to. An arrogant and indifferent voice suddenly interrupted it. The concubine bid 1.7 billion. There is no one else who will speak like this in the presence of the pirate queen Boa Hancock. People look at the pirate empress, and no one is not impressed by her peerless style. Even if he wanted to increase the price, he forgot to raise his placard for a while. Feld also sat down. Beside him, Doflamingo asked gloomily, why, are you also infatuated with that woman? Feld was smoking a cigar and hummed, with Losey's wealth, how many women do you need? Losey just doesn't want to be turned into stone. It's very reasonable, and makes people speechless. Other locations. Reikairu in the red group looked at the Phoenix Marco. Aren't you going to treat Whitebeard? Why didn't you make an offer? Marco said, wait for the next one. Anyway, I have enough money to buy one. How about you? Why don't you come out? Reikairu shrugged indifferently. I'm not as rich as you. I've already planned to go back empty-handed. Anyway, the red-haired captain is used to breaking his arm. So ever. This first fairy bin fell into the hands of the Empress Boa Hancock at a price of 1.7 billion Bailey. One-handed payment, one-handed delivery. The money was taken by Garrett. Garrett carried a large box full of treasures, turned into a fan of petty wealth, and said excitedly, a lot of money, master. Xing pouted, complaining in his heart that he didn't know anything. Last time, he knocked off a 5 billion bamboo stake from the four emperor's aunt. However, Xing felt very happy when he saw the big box. After all, this is only the first fairy bin. 56. The temptation of Katakuri. The chaos begins. Begging for flowers. The first fairy bin was sold to the pirate queen's house at a price of 1.7 billion Baileys. The atmosphere on the field was thoroughly heated. When the second fairy bin started bidding, it surpassed the first 1.7 billion in just a few minutes. 2 billion. A woman's voice came from the VIP seats. Not Boa Hancock, but Queen of the Pleasure District Stussy. After Stussy finished raising the cards, he smiled and said cutely, brothers and sisters, can you raise your hand and stop arguing with the little girl for this fairy bean? Feld, the king of loan sharks, looked like he was about to vomit. Stussy, you are an old witch who doesn't know how old you are, and you still call yourself a little girl? Losey bid 2.3 billion. Stussy's eyes flashed a cold killing intent, but he said with a smile on his face, Lord Feld made a lot of money, and people quit. The sky-high price of 2.3 billion Bailey. No one spoke again on the field for a while. Even Harding, Green Pepper, and Elizabello too, who desperately wanted fairy beans, could only stare blankly. 2.3 billion is too much, and their net worth is far from enough. Just when Feld was gearing up to take this fairy bin into his bag, the Phoenix Marco stood up, I made a bid of 2.5 billion on behalf of the Whitebeard pirates. This fairy bin is to cure my father. I hope everyone will give me a face. Kaido wet the drumstick and muttered, why does Marco speak the same way as the captain? The redhead Shank's mantra is to give me face. There were whispers on the field. Does everyone care about what Marco said about treating Whitebeard? Is the strongest man in the world sick? As for whether to give Marco face or not, it goes without saying. Whitebeard pirates, as the strongest four emperors group for a long time, who dares to offend? Feld resolutely confessed again. Beside Doflamingo's expression is gloomy. His original plan was that all fairy bins were his, because he thought that in Dressrosa, no one dared to compete with him. However, the arrival of the pirate empress, undead Marco, Katakuri, Kaido and others completely disrupted his plans. Each of these four people has a strength that is not weaker than him. Especially the latter three, they are all affiliated to the Four Emperors regiment which is bigger than him. Doflamingo can't afford to offend any of them. Damn. If I knew this earlier, I shouldn't have promised Kaido to hold this bullshit auction. Unfortunately, regret is useless. In the current situation, he is no longer able to master. Even if you add the two kings of the underground world, Feld and Pycro, it still won't work. The second fairy bin was taken by Marco, the phoenix of the Whitebeard pirates. Garrett brought back a treasure chest that was bigger than before, and the eyes of the two rabbits were about to turn into the shape of Bailey. The third fairy bin started shooting. The first two fairy bins were auctioned out so fast that many people didn't have time to raise their cards. However, just as they were about to raise their hands, a tyrannical pressure suddenly descended upon the audience. In the air, there is a black airflow surging. Seeing this, Doflamingo, Empress, and Green Pepper changed their expressions almost at the same time. Because they are too familiar, this coercive aura is obviously Conqueror's haki. Dong dong dong. A man with a trident took a chilling pace and walked straight to the pillar in the center of the battle arena. The host was too scared to speak. Diamante, the maintainer of order in the arena, swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and dared to speak as he scolded the Green Pepper before. I'll give out 2 billion Baileys. This third fairy bin belongs to Wango. Do you have any opinion? Charlotte Katakuri's sharp eyes scanned the audience, and those who dare to look directly at him are among the strong. Katakuri took the fairy bins in his hand, and he threw a box out at a very fast speed. The direction of the throw is exactly where Liu Xing is. When the box is about to hit Liu Crossing, a man came out of the mountain like a tiger, and suddenly appeared in front of Liu Xing, stretched out his hand, and grabbed the box firmly. Katakuri's pupils narrowed. His original intention was to use this to test the strength of the mysterious concubine of the beasts, but unexpectedly, he was caught by the other side's valet. He used a lot of force and even covered haki on the box. The servant of the concubine of the beasts was able to catch it with one hand, and his strength was beyond his expectations. Katakuri remembered that this person seemed to be called Fozfu, but he was only a member of the 100 beasts, and he was not even the 3 disasters, but he had such strength. And the monster cell is also the invention of the beast consort. Liu Xing took the treasure chest from Fuzfu's hand, weighed the weight, and said with a slight smile, "Thank you for the 2 billion Baileys from the Big Mom pirates, plus the previous 5 billion, you have already given me 7 billion Baileys. What a great person." The corners of Katakuri's mouth twitched under the scarf, and he stared at Liu Xing for a while before returning to his seat. With his foreseeable future observation haki, he had to admit that he couldn't see through this mysterious man. This scene fell into the eyes of others. Some people think that Liu Xing is pretending to be mysterious, and he must be not very strong. Otherwise, why should he let his subordinates take Katakuri's box? Some people think that Liu Xing is unpredictable, and in his words, he seems to be ridiculing the Big Mom pirates. This episode is over. The auction for the 4th fairy bin begins. There are only 2 immortal bins left, and those who have not obtained immortal bins are in a state of madness. Even Sabo, the revolutionary army who had been hiding, also raised his card. But compared to the 4 Emperors regiment and the king of the underground world, the revolutionary army was not rich. Most of their funds were used to subvert the world government. The price has been soaring, and will soon exceed 2 billion. Sabo could only helplessly say to Koala, "I thought I had enough money, but I didn't expect the price to be getting more and more outrageous. It seems that we can't afford one." Koala comforted, "It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I eat fairy bins or not. Anyway, I'm already used to the mark on my back." Sabo felt guilty. He had promised Koala before. After thinking about it, Sabo said, "After the auction is over, we will grab one from others when we have the chance. They are all pirates anyway, and fairy bins are also a scourge to the world in their hands." Koala nodded in agreement. Originally, she still wanted to remove the hoofs of the celestial dragons from her back. The 4th fairy bin was finally taken away by Feld at a sky-high price of 3 billion. Only the last fairy bin left. As the host said start the auction, the field became eerily quiet, and no one immediately raised their cards like the previous 4 times. The situation has become delicate. Those with keen senses are ready to slip away. There are still so many strong people who have not gotten the fairy bean, but there is only one fairy bin left. What happens next is not surprising. Boom! There was a sudden loud noise. A stout figure jumped out of the auditorium and ran towards the last fairy bin. This fairy bin belongs to Lozi. No one is allowed to rob Lozi. Boom! There were two loud bangs. A giant and an old man with a crown wearing gloves also rushed out of the audience and shouted, "Green pepper in the cone, stop Lozi." The first person who rushed out was the green pepper, who could no longer bear it. Roll! Green pepper roared. Armament haki covered his head and charged. The battle started so suddenly. The arena is in chaos. Ordinary spectators run away. There was a gleam of excitement in the eyes of some ambitious people. Obviously, the three green peppers are not the only ones who want to take advantage of the chaos to grab the last fairy bin. 57. Zukiing shot, dazzling melee, begging for flowers. You bastards, whose territory do you think this is? Doflamingo's expression was extremely dark. He hasn't even gotten a single fairy bin so far, which is too far from his original expectation. In a very bad mood, how could he allow this last fairy bin to be taken away by others? Call out! Doflamingo suddenly disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, he was already standing on top of the giant Helding's head. With a flick of his 5 fingers, an invisible thread slid across Helding's neck. Plop tilde. Helding's huge head fell to the ground, and blood like a stream spurted out. Stimulated by the smell of blood, the arena became more and more chaotic. People screamed and ran away desperately. In a blink of an eye, there were only 20 or 30 figures left in the arena. Most of them were cadres of the Quixote family. Doflamingo killed the giant Helding with one blow, and his body kept going straight to the last fairy bin. Stop, Doflamingo. Gonzai King Jiao was furious and used 8 punches to stop Brother Ming. Diamante stood in front of him. Another top cadre of the Quixote family, Terepol, also blocked Elisabello too. Just when Doflamingo thought he was sure, suddenly there was a strong wind. Doflamingo was furious, covering Armament Haki's fist and hitting the wind. Dragon Claw Fist. The source of the strong wind was a blonde youth, and the fingers that pinched into Dragon Claws also covered Armament Haki. Zizizi. The two fists met, and a fierce electric spark collided. Doflamingo was shocked to find that this young man who ran out of nowhere, the strength of Haki was not under him. "Who the hell are you?" Doflamingo asked. The blonde youth smiled and said, "That's none of your business, Koala." A young girl walked around the two of them and went straight to Xiandu. Doflamingo's face changed suddenly, and he shouted, "Pyclo, stop that woman!" With a murderous grin on his face, the king of killers, Pycro, slashed at Koala with a scythe. Whoosh! At the moment when the battle situation was inextricable for everyone, a big bird with blue flames all over its body flew from a high altitude. "Phoenix Marco, didn't you already get a fairy bin?" The people below questioned in shock. Marco, who turned into a phoenix, said, "It is said that one fairy bin can cure all injuries, but the legend is a legend after all. To be on the safe side, I'd better bring 2 fairy bins to my father." The people below have lost their temper. He could only watch helplessly as Marco got closer and closer to Xiandu. In the nick of time, Charlotte Katakuri made her move. Magic rice cake. 2 black giant fists appeared out of nowhere, forcing Marco back. Katakuri sneered, "Unfortunately, I think the same as you, Marco the Phoenix." Marco fell to the ground, returned to human form, and looked at Katakuri with an ugly face. "Your mother Charlotte Linlin, who is known as a steel balloon, has never been hurt, so why do you need so many fairy beans?" Katakuri was silent. In fact, Katakuri wanted to take another fairy bin to treat the wound on his sister Bree's face. Of course he wouldn't tell Marco about this. The competition between you is so fierce, then I can't watch it. Otherwise, the red-haired captain will definitely blame me. Reikaru swallowed the whole chicken leg in his hand and slammed his feet on the ground. Although he is fat, he is almost as fast as the ultimate. "Stop, you disgusting fat pig." Xiandu is a concubine. The beautiful shadow, fluttering her hair flying, raised her long legs like jade. "Perfume femur." Reikaru hurriedly stopped, looked at the pirate empress who suddenly appeared in front of him, patted his chest and said, "It's so dangerous, so dangerous. I was almost kicked into a stone man." The empress's perfume femur is a passive skill that turns people into stone as long as they touch them. The other side. A strange light flashed in Queen of the Pleasure District Stassi's eyes, looking at the chaos on the arena. She thought with schadenfreude, "Fight, fight, fight hard. I'll go get another fairy bin." Then a pair of charming eyes stared at Feld, the king of loan sharks, who had just spent 3 billion sky-high prices to get a fairy bin. Feld stood up with all the hair on his body, and said in horror, "What do you want, Stassi?" Stassi stretched out a finger and giggled. "Of course you're going to die, Lord Feld." Fly finger pistol. An air bomb flew out from Stassi's fingertips, and under Feld's terrified eyes, hit the latter's chest. The entire competitive arena is undergoing a dazzling melee. There is only one place, like a paradise, still calm and indifferent. That is the highest point of the VIP seat, where Liu Xing is. Liu Xing drank the wine in the glass slowly, stood up, stretched his waist, and then glanced at Fuzzy Furry. "Go ahead, this comedy should end." Fozfu's face was full of excitement. because what he will do next will surely shake the whole world. His name will be famous all over the world from now on. Fuzfu bowed to Liu Xing. His scarlet wings spread behind his back, his body suddenly enlarged, turning into a huge saber-toothed tiger in a blink of an eye. Roar! The ferocious tiger roar resounded in the sky. Everyone on the arena was shocked by the tiger roar, and subconsciously stopped their movements and looked in the direction of Fuzzy Fu. That's a saber-toothed tiger with wings? What a powerful aura, like a beast from the wild. Marco, Katakuri, such as the Emperor's vice-level powerhouse, were all captured by Fuzfu's aura. Doflamingo, who is facing off against Sabo, Chief of Staff of the Revolutionary Army, has a happy face. Is Liu Xing sending Fuzzy Fu to help me? Yes, I am an important partner of Kaido of the Beasts after all, and they also need my artificial devil fruit. Doflamingo, who was dreaming beautifully, was slapped in the face the next moment. Fuzfu didn't even glance at him, and flew away directly. Seeing the direction in which it flew away, Doflamingo suddenly changed color, and even had a cold feeling throughout his body. Just because that direction is where Dressrosa makes the Smile Fruit Factory. 58. Liu Xing shot. The power of Yamato. Doflamingo was greatly disturbed by Fuzfu flying in the direction of the Smile Fruit Factory. What is Liu Xing, the concubine of the beasts, going to do? Rob his artificial devil fruit? But there are only 100 smile fruits that have been made so far. This amount is far from enough for Kaido of the beast's ambitions. Doflamingo looked gloomy and puzzled. He no longer fights with Sabo, and doesn't even care about Xiandu. He leaps straight in front of Liu Xing, frowning and said, "Why did you send Fuzfu to the factory?" In the arena, everyone stopped in unison. They all felt that the situation had become very strange. Aren't the beasts and Doflamingo in the same camp? Marco, Katakuri, Empress, Kaido, all eyes were on Liu Xing at this moment. Liu Xing smiled slightly, looked at Doflamingo and said seriously, "Joker, because your strength is too weak, you may be defeated by other pirates in the future." So, Kaido's father-in-law decided that our group of beasts will take over Dressrosa, including your Smile Factory and weapons trading field. What do you think of this proposal, Joker? The audience was stunned. Doflamingo was even more astonished. He never expected Liu Xing to say such a thing. His expression gradually became distorted, the blue veins on his forehead were knotted like steel wire, and boundless anger rose from his heart. Doflamingo let out a growl. What a joke. You bastard. Losey is on the phone with Kaido. Doflamingo can't and won't believe that Kaido wants to kill him and take all his assets. He stared at Liu Xing fiercely, like a hysterical beast. Liu Xing slowly pulled out the long knife from his waist and said lightly, "Unfortunately, you don't have this chance." Liu Xing walked towards Doflamingo step by step, the surging haki like an ocean wave rippled around him, and was continuously absorbed by the Yanmo in his hands. The Phoenix Marco's pupils shrank sharply, staring at Liu Xing's knife. That's Yamato, the knife hadn't used a use. Kozuki had been with the Whitebeard pirates for a long time, and Marco was very familiar with him, so he knew him naturally. So, Marco was even more shocked. Yamato is not a knife that ordinary people can use. Although Katakuri didn't know Yamato, his keen observation haki could clearly sense the terrifying breath on Yamamo's sword. He has a vague intuition that even he can't take the attack from this knife. Marco and Katakuri were so far apart, they could feel the horror of Inma. Doflamingo, who was closest to Liu Xing, was even more horrified and terrified. "What are you going to do?" Doflamingo shouted sternly. The corner of Liu Xing's mouth evoked a mocking arc. "It seems that eating monster cells has reduced your intelligence a lot." What is Liu Xing going to do? Isn't it obvious? The flowing pitch-black haki wrapped around Yanmo, and Liu Xing swung out with a knife. A black sword wave seemed to pierce through the space, flying towards Doflamingo at a speed that was almost indiscernible. Even if Doflamingo didn't want to believe it, he had to recognize the fact that the beasts were really going to attack him. Damn. Doflamingo hates so much that he can't wait to run to Wano to question Kaido. But right now, in front of the black sword wave emitting a deadly cold glow, Doflamingo could only wrap all armament haki in his arms and block in front of him. A clanging sound. The black sword wave actually regarded Doflamingo's armament as nothing, and directly broke the defense, leaving a huge wound on the latter's chest. "What?" Doflamingo screamed. The body was thrown out by the huge impact force and smashed on the audience stage. "Little Lord!" The Cardas of the Donquixote family who were present shouted worriedly. The two top Cardas, Terepel and Diamante, were in unprecedented panic. They don't understand why the beast's pirates suddenly attacked them. "Do not care." Terepel was the first to react and said fiercely, "Since the 100 beasts are unjust, don't blame us for being unkind. Let's go together and kill Liu Xing, the consort of the 100 beasts." Led by two top Cardas, Terepel and Diamante, they attacked Liu Xing together. Liu Xing is as calm as water. "Mayfly dare to shake the tree?" Clank. Yanmo let out a bloodthirsty cheer, and several sword waves shot out one after another. No matter the ordinary carders of the Quixote family or the so-called top carders, they were all beheaded without being able to resist for a second. Blood stained the ground of the arena. Dead silence. No one thought things would go in this direction. Katakuri, Mako, and Katakuri, 3 members of the 4 Emperors Regiment, were even more deeply disturbed. The beast group killed Doflamingo and annexed Dressrosa. Is it the rhythm of expansion? Empress Boa Hancock revisited Liu Crossing. At first, she thought Liu Xing was just an inventor. Never thought that he actually had such strength. The idea of tying Liu Xing back to the daughter's country, I'm afraid it won't come true. Everyone. After Liu Xing killed the carders of the Quixote family, he turned his eyes to the crowd and said with a smile, "There is the last fairy bean. Whoever of you wants can bid. Just treat it as the auction is still going on." The expressions of the crowd became extremely strange. Still have this? Sabo, Chief of Staff of the Revolutionary Army, gave Liu Xing a terrified look. This mysterious man may become the enemy of their revolutionary army in the future. It may even be a more terrifying enemy than world government. You really shouldn't stay here for long. Sabo leapt and took the last fairy bin in his hand before everyone could react, and threw a bag to Liu Crossing. "This is all my money. There will be a period later." "Say it." He left Dressrosa with Koala without hesitation. 59. Conquerors that deal physical damage. Liu Xing weighed the bag in his hand. Bailey still has billions of dollars. This is already a huge sum of money for the poor revolutionary army. He looked at Sabo, who was leaving at a very high speed, and his voice was not loud, but it was clearly transmitted to the other party's ears. "One day, we will meet again." Liu Xing's goal is to build the strongest animal group, overthrow the world government, and recreate the world. The purpose of the revolutionary army is somewhat similar, but the method is completely different. The revolutionary army is hiding in the dark, quietly carrying out subversive activities in various countries, and it does not dare to compete head-on with Marine and the world government. Liu Xing's method is to break through all methods with all his strength, and wait until he can create a god-level monster cell and let his cheap father-in-law Kaido eat it. King long-form plus god-level monster equals destroy the world. Directly push the world. Plop tilde. There was a sound of cracking stones. Doflamingo emerged from the pit, a horrific slender scar on his chest that even string fruit's abilities couldn't suture. His eyes were red, looking at the corpses of the family carders on the ground. The whole person was almost crazy. A violent murderous aura surged around him, and a black air current rose into the sky. Empress Boa Hancock's eyes flickered slightly, and she retreated into the distance with her 2 younger sisters. The last fairy bin was snatched away, and she didn't need to participate in this battle that surprised her too. Katakuri, Mako, Katakuri and others also thought the same way, watching from the sidelines. Among them, Stussy, the CP0 spy who killed Feld and also captured a fairy bean, quietly hid in the dark to observe Liu Crossing. This is a good opportunity to get more information about the beast's consorts. Lozi is going to kill you. Doflamingo's voice seemed to come from hell, and the gloomy aura around him made him look like a real demon. He moved. Speed to ultimate. The degree of murderous aura is even more chilling. The faces of the strong men such as Katakuri and Mako changed slightly. After eating monster cells, Doflamingo's strength is indeed incomparable to before. Even they all feel a strong threat. Without blinking their eyes, they stared intently at the battlefield. Obviously, like Stussy, they are extremely curious about Liu Xing's strength. Liu Xing handed the bag in his hand to the little maid Garrett behind him, facing Doflamingo who was rushing towards him. His expression did not change at all. 5 color strings. An angry Doflamingo grabbed Liu Xing fiercely. 5 colored threads follow behind his paws. How will this mysterious concubine of beasts respond? Katakuri's eyes flashed red, and he used observation haki, who could see the future. So, he was shocked, with a shocked expression. I saw Liu Xing raised his hand slowly. His palms seemed to be covered with a layer of flowing, black armor. As soon as he touched Doflamingo's 5 color strings, he easily cut off the 5 color strings, which were harder than steel. Liu Xing's palm didn't stop, and then he slapped Doflamingo's left face. Puff. Doflamingo seemed to have his entire cheekbone shattered, spitting out blood with several teeth, and his body flew out like a broken sack. Everyone's eyes widened. If Liu Xing's black sword wave hit Doflamingo by surprise at first, causing the latter to be injured. But just now, the attack initiated by Doflamingo was still crushed. The 2 younger sisters behind the Empress took a deep breath and said in shock, "What is the black armor flowing on that person's hand?" Not far away, Mako heard it and said, "It should be something called emission in Wonokuni, which is what we usually call haki. But this is an advanced use of haki, which can ignore the outer defense and directly attack the inside of the human body." Mako is familiar with Kozukiden, and since he knows emission, his eyes can't help showing a dignified look. "I didn't expect that this concubine of beasts is such a skilled master emission." Being proficient in master emission means that even if he is Marco's phoenix body, he will be injured by the opponent. However, it made him even more dignified, and even his face changed greatly in the back. Liu Xing walked towards Doflamingo, who was thrown away. Step by step, gaining momentum with each step. Stronger than Green Pepper and Isabella too, both felt dizzy. Green Pepper exclaimed, "This is Conqueror's haki." Green Pepper also has Conqueror's haki, but compared to what Liu Xing is distributing at the moment, it is like a firefly and a bright moon. Click. A boulder was unbearably shattered. This time, even the Pirate Empress and Katakuri changed their colors. Such a tyrannical conquerors is already more than the two of them. The red-haired Rachel opened his mouth wide and whispered as if he had seen a ghost. Conquerors that can directly cause physical damage. I didn't expect that other than the captain, there are other people in this world who can do this. The redhead is known as the person with the strongest conquerors in the world, because his conquerors can directly cause physical damage. And Liu Xing actually has such conquerors. Doflamingo, whose cheekbones were swollen like a mountain, lost the anger just now, only a sense of fear and awe. He could never have imagined that Liu Xing, who usually does not look like a mountain, has such a terrifying strength. Advanced Armament Haki emission, Conqueror's haki that deals physical damage. This is far from being possible even if Doflamingo eats monster cells. Doflamingo even had the illusion that the enemy he was facing at the moment was the Kaido of the beasts. I don't believe. Lozi is celestial dragons. Doflamingo went mad and didn't want to admit the reality. He struggled to his feet, unreservedly releasing his conquerors. Unfortunately, in front of Liu Xing's conquerors, it is as insignificant as a stream. Doflamingo was furious, almost insane. Bloodthirsty eyes stared at Liu Xing who was walking towards him. Even if you die, Lozi will pull you along. Let me show you, Lozi's strongest move, Devil Fruit's Awakening. 60. The Emperor should be astonished. Conqueror's Entanglement. Fosfu went straight to the Smile Factory. On the way, he made a phone call. Hey, Runty, Peggy 1, you can bring someone over here and take over everything in Dressrosa. Remember, you can't hurt civilians casually. This is the order of the concubine. Although Liu Xing only brought Fuzzy Fu and Garrett to the island, he had already asked Runty Pijuan and his brother to lead the 200 Giovanni Legion and 100 Fur Tribe soldiers to support the outskirts of Tokushima. It is at this time, at the speed of thunder, that the entire Dressrosa is completely in control. Let other forces, especially Marine and World Government, fail to react. After the phone call, Fuzzy Fu arrived at the Smile Factory. Here, he met another top cadre of the Donquixote family, Pika, the Stone Fruit Power. What are you doing here? This is a forbidden place. Pika, who still knew nothing, exclaimed in a high-pitched voice. Fosfu sneered, with such a thin voice, are you a sissy? What did you say, bastard? What Pika hated the most was being called a sissy. Raise your fist and hit Fosfu. The other end. Runty and Pijuan, who received the call from Fuzzy, rushed to Dressrosa as quickly as possible. After arriving on the island, they did nothing to the commoner coup, but they killed the members of the Donquixote family. For a time, the whole of Tokushima was in panic and chaos. The people did not know what happened, and their pupils were full of fear. Pijuan, who had been instructed by Liu Xing long ago, shouted loudly with a loudspeaker, don't panic folks, we beasts pirates are here to save you. Doflamingo is doing a good job in Dressrosa, doing all the bad things, turning people into toys at every turn. Our beasts will do justice for the heavens today. Whether the people believe it or not, the goblins believe it anyway. Dressrosa has the nickname of the country of passion and fairies. The so-called fairies refer to the little people of Greenwood who live next to Tokushima. The little people are simple in nature and are very easy to trust others. When they heard Pijuan's words, they jumped up with joy. Oh, the beasts are really good people. They've come to punish the wicked Doflamingo. Woo, I'm so moved to cry. After so many years, someone has finally come to save us. Go and help the beasts pirates. So, a wonderful scene appeared. When the 100 beasts attacked and killed the members of the Donquixote family, a group of small humans followed. Don't look at the little people who are small, but their strength is very large, and their speed is also extremely fast. And they were familiar with Dressrosa's terrain, and they took the initiative to lead the way for the beasts, saving the beasts a lot of effort. Peggy 1 couldn't stop laughing at the time. He didn't expect a few words of publicity to have such a miraculous effect. In my heart, I admire Liu Xing's foresight even more. In a house, the Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral Flying Squirrel hidden here is shocked. His previous unease was fulfilled, and Dressrosa ushered in chaos. But he never imagined that the root cause of the chaos was the Beast Group allied with Doflamingo. And the purpose of the Beast Group was to occupy Dressrosa. It's unbelievable. He didn't dare to delay, and hurriedly reported this shocking news to Marshal Sengoku. The royal palace of Dressrosa. Although Viola was embarrassed at the time, she still followed Liu Xing's order and brought her niece Rebecca home. After all, this is also what she has always wanted to do but dare not do. But that man only needs a word. Viola and Rebecca, the aunt and niece, hugged each other and cried when they recognized each other. Rebecca wiped her tears and said, Aunt, you rescued me. How could Doflamingo agree? Viola said, he dare not disagree, because this is what Liu Xing, the concubine of the beasts, said. Beasts. Liu Xing? Rebecca was moved when she heard the name for the first time. He must be a good person. I want to thank him in person. Viola hesitated. That man is indeed a good man, good enough to take care of our aunt and nephew for the rest of his life. But in that case, Viola wouldn't have the nerve to say it. At this moment, she heard the chaos in the outside world. Some beast group wanted to save Dressrosa. Viola hurriedly pulled Rebecca out to take a look, and both of them were stunned. The beasts are actually chasing Doflamingo's subordinates. Rebecca was even more moved when she heard the propaganda of the 100 beasts. Lord Liu Xing wants to help us eliminate Doflamingo and save Dressrosa. That's great. Viola was shocked. She finally understood the confusion before, why the man was not afraid to offend Doflamingo. It turned out that his real purpose was to occupy the latter's territory. Viola hurriedly used the ability to stare at the fruit and looked at the arena. Then, she saw a scene that she will never forget for the rest of her life. On the arena, Crazy Doflamingo is about to fight to the death, and he uses the awakening ability of String Fruit. Turn the surrounding terrain and all buildings into white lines. Massive white lines tumbled like waves, and under the control of Doflamingo, it is wound up to form a high-density wire drill. Go to hell. Everyone is going to die. Doflamingo laughed frantically and pushed Armament Haki to ultimate, attaching it to the high-density wire drill. 16 holy bullets. God punishment. 16 huge high-density wire drills, dyed pitch black by Armament Haki, are invincible and terrifying. The Empress, Marco and others changed their expressions and retreated further. Doflamingo's full-strength move. Even the Emperor's deputy-level powerhouse such as Marco and Katakuri, had to be cautious. How do you deal with such a powerful attack? Continue to use the advanced Armament Haki emission. Katakuri once again activated the vision of the future. And this time, he didn't see anything. Impossible. Katakuri's heart surged with waves. How could his sense of sight be invalid? No, it may also fail, as long as the object of observation. The next attack Haki and speed are strong to a certain level. Even his seeing and hearing can't predict it. What kind of attack is it that can actually make my knowledge invalid? Katakuri stared closely at Liu Xing's every move. Buzz. In the air, black lightning flashed continuously. Some kind of terrifying momentum is brewing. Liu Xing held Yanmo and walked like a leisurely garden, ignoring the so-called 16 holy bullets that attacked him. Doflamingo laughed fiercely when he saw this. Arrogance. This is Lozi's strongest attack. You die first. Sooner or later, Lozi will kill Kaido of the beasts too. Lozi is the man who finally becomes One Piece. Crazy laughter, shaking the four wild. Liu Xing's footsteps finally stopped. The terrifying momentum was brewed, and black lightning gathered on Yanmo, with purple arcs flowing between them. Next moment, Liu Xing swings the knife. Brushed black, Conqueror's twist. Thunder 8 trigrams with a knife instead of a mace. Boom boom boom. Yanmo shattered 16 sacred bullets with a destructive power, and flashed across his neck under Doflamingo's unbelievable terrified eyes. Plop tilde. Doflamingo's head fell to the ground, just like the giant Helding who was beheaded by him before. See this scene. Even Boa Hancock, the arrogant pirate queen, couldn't help being shocked and stood still. Even the Emperor and deputy-level powerhouses such as Marco and Katakuri couldn't help but be horrified, and their eyelids jumped. Reikairu, the fat man in the red group, with his mouth open wide, didn't even notice that his favorite chicken leg fell. Queen of the Pleasure District, CP0 Spice Dusty, looks terrified, no longer charming and elegant. Well-informed, they all recognized it. Liu Xing's move just now is a Conqueror's twist that can only be used by the world's top powerhouses! What kind of king are you going to be, Joker? Liu Xing put the knife in the sheath, glanced at Doflamingo's fallen head, and said lightly, if you like this audiobook, subscribe the channel for more videos like this and join my Patreon if you want to support me. Leave some comment and let me know if you guys like this story, or you have a web novel you like and want to hear its audiobook. I will be happy to create them for you. Please like, share, and leave a comment on the video.